Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Students for Political Engagement. Today we have Mr. Scott Thompson, a candidate for Ward 2 Councillor for the City of Richmond Hill. Thank you, Mr. Thompson. As a formality, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and provide yourself a short introduction and why you're running for City Council?
Absolutely. Thank you very much first for hosting this interview. I really appreciate that. And I think it'll be very beneficial for all those watching. I'm married. I have 2 adult children, 24-year resident of Richmond Hill, the last 22 in Ward 2. Raised and educated my children here in Richmond Hill. I have over 30 years of government experience managing, administrating, purchasing, and financial risk management functions. I'm well versed in the various municipal and provincial legislative acts and regulations that govern council decisions. And I've been a very active community volunteer, where most recently, the past 3 years, I've been involved with the Council Accountability Group here in Richmond Hill. And before that, I was involved with the Committee of Adjustment. I was a member on the Committee of Adjustment for 4 years. I have other volunteer experience, mostly in the recreational area. And why I'm running is because I feel that Richmond Hill residents really have not been represented on council for the past couple of terms now. I'm somebody who's actually willing to listen to the residents and speak as their voice with honesty and integrity. My knowledge, my interest, my involvement in our municipality demonstrates my fitness to render decisions that best represent the interests and well-being of Richmond Hill residents. The various boards and committees that I've chaired or participated on during my working and volunteer career has prepared me well with firsthand experience on how members, representatives on a board or committee or like a council, should conduct themselves so that the interests and well-being of residents are faithfully observed and addressed on decisions being rendered. So that's a synopsis of about me and why I'm running.
Thank you. So as our first question, as a municipality, the financial health of the city is a very important part of its operation. What would you do as a councillor to ensure that Richmond Hill is on good financial grounds, while at the same time providing the same or improved services?
Okay, so first off, I do want to say that I do believe Richmond Hill is actually on pretty good financial ground. However, we have dipped into reserve funds for projects recently. The 2 years that we've just gone through of a zero tax increase certainly has an impact. Can we continue to do zero tax increases without having an impact? I don't think so. Not a popular thing to say. People start hearing, well, so what's Scott Thompson want? Does he want us to raise taxes? Well, what I don't like seeing is what has happened when we didn't raise taxes. For instance, your fines have gone up substantially for a number of different things. The fees for registration into programs that are run by the city or to rent a facility. I can give you a quick example on fees that impact all the candidates right now. In 2018, the sign permit fee was $20. Today, 4 years later, the sign permit fee, $273. So talk to those parents that have, and I'm sure yourselves, if you're in after school programs or something, you've probably experienced how these fees have gone up substantially. And you talk to the parents that are trying to put their kids into various programs where they're run by the city or they're using city facilities, all of a sudden they're being priced right out of the market from being able to have their children in these programs. So, those are a couple of things. Then you also have cuts. The library board, for instance, has had many cuts that, well, they were cut pretty deep. So you have to think about those things on a financial aspect. Again, like I said, from the top, Richmond Hill is actually in pretty good shape, but we can't continue with a zero tax increase and just put it elsewhere, because that's all we're doing. We're just shifting it around. The one thing that I would want to look into is that when the windrow snow removal program was put in place, there were 79 seasonal part-time staff members who were all converted to full-time staff members. And when you look at, we only had snow removal requirements 4 times last year. Where are these people being used elsewhere? So they were supposed to be part of Public Works in an enhanced program that would care for the city. I don't know about you, but I'm not seeing it. I see certain parts of the city look great. I'm very lucky. I live very close to Yonge Street and the downtown village core. It always looks beautiful. We have the flower pots and arrangements and everything all set up. In the wintertime, you've got the lights and everything. As soon as you get away from the core, all of a sudden those community standards, they don't seem to be there. So I really question where those staff are being utilized if they're to help, care for the city. Maybe I'm wrong. They could be someplace, I just don't know, but I definitely would want to do a review of the efficiency and the effectiveness of all the city-run programs, departments. And if we have to realign them somewhere, that's what I would suggest we would have to do.
Yes, thank you for that answer. And I was just wondering, as a follow-up, as you said, you think you oppose the 0% tax increase. So if you were to have additional taxes, is there any place where you think you would spend that additional revenue?
I'm not suggesting that I'm opposing the zero tax revenue. I'm just suggesting that I don't believe it would be sustainable. In which case, like I say, you can only push off things so far for so long. So if you push them into fees or fines or cuts, something's going to give somewhere. So, I would have to suggest that in all likelihood, if we had, say, a 1% or even a 2% tax increase, the impact on the property taxes would probably be in the neighborhood on average somewhere around $58 a year. That doesn't sound so unreasonable. But again, if you talk to those parents where they've had the programs that they're trying to put their kids into have gone up way more, yeah, they're going to say, yeah, I would have rather paid $56 on my tax bill than what I just paid for registration. So that's how I feel about that. Not sure, did I answer your question?
Yes, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, so our next question is about our public parks and green spaces. So how will you work to improve and protect the environment in Richmond Hill?
Well, so yeah, protecting it is one of the main things that we want to do. And I believe that our stakeholders and partners are on board with that. So there's been several times where we've seen applications come forward where they wanted to get into our the Oak Ridges Moraine and into the green spaces, and the province has actually stepped up and said no. And these had been through like people trying to get ministers' zoning orders, things like that. So I think for the most part in Richmond Hill, we're on the right track of making sure that we do protect our environment. In terms of parkland, we have what's called a community benefits charges, and in that it incorporates parkland dedication It's a bylaw that's used towards, say, parkland acquisition. So, I think that we have the mechanisms in place. We just have to make sure that we adhere to them. So.
Thank you. Thank you.
And yes, thank you for the answer. And I think on the next question, which is on efficient transportation. So obviously, Richmond Hill is a very large city, and we have a lot of roads that connect our cities and various parts of our city. So what would you as a councillor do to develop and improve Richmond Hill's current transportation system?
Well, okay, so the roads that Richmond Hill can directly maintain and affect are all your arterial roads. All your regional roads are actually, managed by the region. So we have to work with the region when we're trying to affect anything that's dealing with the regional roads. And a prime example, particularly in my ward, Ward 2, is on Elgin Mills, where the railway tracks are. And I believe it was over 8 years ago that approval was provided to actually do a bridge there, or an underpass, I can't remember which, so that the traffic could actually move better across there. And I don't know if, how many people that have been stopped there, but I've been stopped there many times, where you get one train going one direction, and just as it's about to finish, one starts going the other direction. So because you got the two-way tracks there, and you can be stuck there for quite some time. So I mean, granted, this is specific to Ward 2, but it impacts the people that are going from, say, Markham to Vaughan, if they're coming through that way. So it's not just a Ward 2 issue in the end. So yeah, I would want to find out why shovels haven't got into the ground yet after all these years. I'd be certainly lobbying the region to get it done. I don't know why it hasn't been done to this point. It's been approved for a long time.
Thank you. So just going on a different topic here, an important part of a livable community is community safety. So how will you, as councillor, maintain and improve community safety in Richmond Hill?
Great question. We've experienced a number of different things over the years. Like I said, I've been in this particular ward for 22 years, and I was fortunate that I didn't live there at a time when there was something called Fantasia. This was a bar, and the people that it was attracting was also attracting drug dealers and prostitution and things like this. And that type of stuff was actually filtering right into the neighborhood, right into Ward 2. Now, that situation eventually got resolved. We have another situation now, today, that is quite similar. There's a problem that's attracting drug dealers and different sorts into the neighborhood, and we're experiencing a higher rate of crime in the area. Like, it's increased quite substantially with petty thefts and violence and things like that. And we need to identify exactly what the source of the issue is, why these people are being attracted to this particular area. We have to work with the various stakeholders, which could include, will include the region. So other levels of government. We'll have to be working with the York Region Police Services. We'll be working with social services, a number of different agencies to try and identify how we can best handle the situation that's coming into our neighborhoods. Um, Another thing that I do want to mention about community safety is that we are seriously lagging behind when it comes to firefighter services, and that does fall directly under the municipality. So police services and social services, that falls under the region, and we would have to work with them collaboratively. But right now, the firefighters are part of the municipality. And we've been losing firefighters through retirement. Yes, we've been hiring more firefighters, but the master plan definitely shows that we lag behind other areas completely when it comes to our services. And the concern there is that it's in the response times. I'm somebody that has had firsthand experience. We had a fire in our house when I was growing up, and we were very lucky that they responded in a very timely manner. They were there. They even told us that had they gotten there, say even just 1.5, 2 minutes later, the whole main floor would have fallen in. That's it's because the fire had started in the basement. So just 1 minute or 2 minutes can make a huge difference to people's lives. And so we need to make sure that we have adequate services from our fire services, and make sure that we provide them with the resources that they need and the staffing that they need. Those are the things that I would be committing to definitely work towards.
All right, thank you. And our next question is on urban development, which I think is a very important part of City Council's responsibilities. So right now, there's obviously a lack of housing in Richmond Hill, which is a very important problem, especially as our population continues to grow. But on the other hand, housing density and adequate services are also a concern of many residents. So what is your philosophy of how City Council could balance these two issues and approach this problem?
Yeah, it's interesting. And it's interesting that you feel that the housing, it's an obvious thing. Well, it's not really. And I'm going to start with the housing, because some will argue that, we have this housing shortage, when in fact, we have all kinds of houses that are sitting vacant. And there's all kinds of development applications that are sitting idle. And the biggest problem there is that why is that allowed to happen? So we get these applications, they come in, and some of them are sitting for years. I don't know why. We should have a cap on that and say, okay, you've made this application, then you need to get a shovel in the ground in a timely manner. Now, if there's certain problems, like if it's the city, if we're trying to get site plan approval and it's the city that's the delay, I get that. But if it's not, then why are they allowed to just keep putting things off and off and off? It doesn't make sense. Similarly, with the vacant houses, why are they sitting vacant for so long? I realize that the region right now is actually looking at putting in, or I think they're allowed to do that now, is to put in a vacant house tax. And now it's up to the municipalities in the region that they'll determine, if they're on board or not on board. And I'm not 100% sure what I think about the vacant tax thing. Sure, it'll pump some money into the coffers, but does it really address the housing problem? And one of the things that I do have to say against the vacancy tax is the Landlord Tenant Act. One of the big problems is that these developers that have bought houses and now they want to say redevelop or modify or whatever, and they're waiting to get an application. If the application takes more than 6 months or something, that's when this tax is supposed to kick in. Well, if they rent it out because they're worried about this 6-month thing, then you get some tenants in there. And if you get some, they pay their first and last, and then they stop paying, try and get them out. And you're seeing these stories day in and day out where they're having to carry the costs on these properties. They can't get them out. The courts are backed up trying to get these people out. So until we have some sort of balance between what can occur with the Landlord Tenant Act and compliance with these other things that people want to implement, there's always, these things can be very interrelated, and we have to make sure that we address those before we just all of a sudden say, oh, well, let's put in this vacant house tax, that should address it. It might address some components, but it could create other problems. So that's what I've got to say about those. The other thing that I do want to say is that what we really need is responsible development. So let's get into the density here. It's definitely concerning because we've got a project that we had worked in collaboration with the region to actually develop that whole area down at Yonge and Number 7 area. And then the province has come along, and it's called a transit orient community, and they've pretty much dictated what they want to have happen. And we're talking about 80-story towers going into this area. And I'm not against development, but 80 stories and what you've just mentioned about infrastructure, can we actually handle that type of development in that area? Water, stormwater, water management, the list could go on with the number of things that we have to worry about in infrastructure. I don't see it, and I think that there's a lot of missed opportunities with this transit-oriented community, but the way it's being, I think, thrust upon us is wrong. And so, yes, we need to work with the province in this particular case and say, well, we're going to need a lot of help on the infrastructure side of things if this is how you want to go. So I know I digressed a little bit, but I do have to say that, we do need responsible development. And, if I get in, basically, I would only approve development projects that include a proper component of affordable housing and are appropriately sized, that fit with or conform and maintain to the character of our communities, and that that the infrastructure is actually there. It just seems like such a simple thing to do, but we're seeing too many applications that are way beyond what is A, required, and B, that we can actually handle. So that's what I have.
All right, thank you for the response. So the last question you might have somewhat touched upon, but just to be sure, what would be the first issue you would try to address if elected councillor?
Well, yeah, definitely community safety is a priority, and we need that on all projects. So when we're going to go ahead with a project, we really have to look at those community concerns at the same time and really understand what could we be bringing into the community when we set up a particular project, whether it be development or social services or something. What is the impact? And we need to take a look at those things. The second thing would be what I just mentioned about responsible development. We really need to have responsible development. And then the third thing to me, I don't know if any of you saw the council meeting on the 14th or not, but it's, to me, I would actively engage to restore accountability and integrity on our council. It was embarrassing to see what occurred the other day, and it would have been embarrassing to see a councillor being hauled out in handcuffs, just because, I think that's how close it came in the most recent council chambers. So, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. And that concludes our interview. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for being here. And yeah.
Okay, and I appreciate you guys doing this. Thank you very much.